All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of the CX Chronicles Podcast. Super excited for today's show. Ugis Balmaks is joining us, the founder of RecruiterMill. Ugis, say hello to the CX Nation, my friend.
Hey, how are you, everybody? I'm super happy to be on.
So we've got a really cool story today. Ugis has been a part of not just the company RecruiterMill that he's going to be talking with us about today, but he's been a part of a few different cool companies that he's going to kind of share. And, you know, when Ugis and I were chatting leading up to today's show, number one, we both just hit this chord around how so many companies today really, truly need more help than ever, frankly, finding awesome, incredible, super talented, A players to come into their business and to help them grow the business. That's number one. And then number two, we've got this wonderful thing. Ugis, you and I were joking around about the great resignation, right? We've got so many different professionals across the world, across the planet, moving jobs, going from employer A to employer B, or going from industry A to industry B. So Ugis, I'm pumped for you to kind of share your story and talk about some of the work that you guys are doing at RecruiterMill. Why don't you start off, say hello to the CX Nation, set the stage, introduce yourself, my friend.
All right, I'm happy to. So my story, I guess the first highlight is my work at iPhone Photography School. And we sold iPhone lessons online. And surprisingly, at least still to me, we did quite well. We grew the business of high seven figures in revenue. And that was mostly powered first through SEO, later on through paid advertising, Facebook, Instagram, all that. But of course, if you grow a company and grow it to that level, you need a team. And, I was the one who was doing hiring for whatever reason. I had no clue how to do it. When I was on my first interview, I just kind of, I was just mimicking what I've heard on other job interviews. And I thought to myself, this question was kind of pointless, but I'll just roll with it. Yeah. So that's where I started. And we had some atrocious hires, but over time, we worked on it, kept working on it. And then I noticed that when I speak to other business owners, somehow the topic eventually becomes recruitment. And then it's almost like they pull out their notebooks and start making notes when I'm talking about recruitment. And I realized, hey, I probably have something here.
Yeah, right.
And then I sold my company. Was thinking about what to do, was playing a lot of chess, reading a lot of books. But after a few months, that gets boring. And I just had some friends that needed help in recruitment, and kind of one engagement after the next, I realized I could just be making money off this. And of course, making money usually also means helping people. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And today at RecruiterMill, there are basically two main areas, I would say, where I can help companies out. One is finding awesome people that are online marketers. And that's my background. That's what I know a lot about, and it's really easy for me. And the other thing is being a business owner myself, having had these like kind of senior positions, I can also help in just finding senior people for the business period. So those are kind of my two main areas where I help people.
That's awesome. So number one, I have to ask, just because I think it's super interesting, 7-figure business on helping people using iPhones. That's super cool. The other thing too is you and I chatted about this a few weeks back, but talk about building a business or focused around a thing that I don't know what the percentage is, but a huge percentage of the global population has an iPhone sitting in their damn pocket, right? So like, awesome idea, really, really cool. Plus, it sounds like that's really kind of where you started to kind of cut your teeth and get your feet wet around how hard it can be, Ugis, to build these things, to build a team, to go out and hire people, to make people work together, to get the collaboration, to constantly be optimizing and improving. I think that's super, super cool. And then moving to RecruiterMill, I love what you just said. One of the ways that you will find a way of making money for your business is by helping people. It's by finding solutions. It's by finding problems that a user or a customer base has, and helping them, right? And if you can do that really, really well, it almost doesn't even matter whether you're in recruiting or whether you're in an iPhone business, you are going to make money, and you're going to find people that are really, really happy to work with you. So super, super cool work that you guys are doing with RecruiterMill. I do want to ask, before we jump into kind of some of the stuff that we have today, I'd love to ask, was recruiting a space that you thought that you would end up building a business inside of? Was it a focus area that drew you? You know, what outside of the experiences with iPhone photography school, what drew you to this recruiting space?
So I was always kind of an analytical person, kind of techie person. And I thought, okay, I was kind of happy to sell my shares in the company because it was, I hadn't really had a break for a long time. And I thought, okay, I'll take some time off and then I'll learn programming, coding, all those things and kind of become good at it. That's what I was meant to do naturally, or so I thought. And I did that for a few months and I realized, actually, this will take a long time. It's like anywhere, you will have to invest a bunch of time before you get really good. I might as well continue doing the thing where I've already become good, where I can already help people on a high level, as opposed to trying to become good at something that a lot of people are already good. So my perception of myself as this like analytical guy wasn't necessarily true because I hadn't put in the hours. Maybe I have the natural inclination, but I hadn't put in the hours. Whereas with recruitment, I just had to. I wasn't really thinking about it, but when I really had an honest look of where I'm good at, it was recruitment much more so than development. And I thought, okay, I'd rather be helping people today and continue building on what I have.
I love it. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think I remember years ago, whether people love him or whether they hate him, Gary Vaynerchuk, he one of his big pieces of advice was, if you already know what you are really, really good at, then double down on it, triple down on it. There's no point in trying to go. You just nailed it. You just you've got to put hours upon hours and days and years. If you're gonna,
that's how you get good.
Yeah, man. That's the reality. Like, it doesn't matter which facet or which walk of life you're talking about. Like, to get really, really excellent at something, it takes a ton of time. So if you're already really good at a few things, or if there's one or two things that you're exceptional at, double down on them, triple down on them, try to figure out how you can kind of create your own unique, personalized way of really bringing that into the world. So I love it, man. So let's kind of jump into today's chat. So I'd love to, I know that you've got some ideas for us that you're going to share around helping. So here at CX Chronicles, we're constantly, meeting with incredible customer focused business leaders from across the world. Many of them are CX and CSers and folks that are thinking about customer experience, customer success, customer service. But I know you got some really cool ideas for us. So why don't you jump into some of the ideas that you and the team at RecruiterMill have been thinking about?
Yeah, so the big promise I want to give the listeners today is I want to talk about how to find a customer experience executive in 8 weeks or less, and not any executive, an A-player one. So that's kind of what I want to cover today.
Fantastic. Okay, please feel free to dive into it, Ugis.
So to me, it's always easiest to understand ideas if they're wrapped around a story. So I was just helping a client of mine find a person like that, and I think it would be a great idea to talk about it. And their story was that they have this incredibly successful piece of software. They're in marketing tech, and they bootstrapped it from basically nothing within a few years, and now they're in 8 figures.
Wow.
So they're doing really well, building an awesome company. I know the owner, so I was kind of proud to see his progress as well.
Yeah.
And we were chatting about how I could help him, and I did some things for him before, and they wanted to hire what they called it was customer success manager. And I thought, okay, well, interesting. I didn't know what customer success is. I wrote a job ad for him because that's one of my specialties, kind of to take, instead of the usual HR kind of, mumbo jumbo, to put it into something that the candidate can understand and something that actually speaks to them, has all the information that they're interested in. Yep. And I did that for him. And they posted a job ad, and that didn't really work out because they were looking for something special. And what they were looking for is, they were this company that's grown fast, self-funded. And when you're self-funded, you focus on sales. That's the number one priority. Yep. If you can't get sales, you can't exist. And they really took it to heart. And that was their kind of motto for that entire time. But once you kind of grow up, you're more mature, you start to need paying attention to the whole package. So basically they wanted a senior person, maybe even the number 2 of the company, that would take care of everything else besides sales. So and that includes customer experience. And it's not bad or anything, but there hadn't been anyone who had like kind of taken care of it and really thought about it. And the other thing that's true for businesses like this one that have grown a lot recently, a lot of the people, they join the company, they're new, they don't necessarily know what they're doing. That certainly was my case. But they kind of figure it out and they become successful. But a more mature company needs someone who's kind of been there, seen it before. And if they want to grow to that next stage, they want to kind of balance these self-starters that they have a ton of in the company with someone who's maybe even a little slower, but not, not because that's their personality or anything, but that's just, or maybe it is their personality, but someone who could balance all these self-starters, all these people with ideas, and kind of, provide some grounding to them. So that was kind of what they were looking for. So they had, and of course they're in marketing tech, so they won't have someone with that experience, really senior experience, all these things, like, I don't know, 5-10 different requirements, someone who could even start a customer support department if they needed to. So they had all these requirements. And of course, if there's a job ad, maybe someone will apply, but what are the odds they're going to match all those things? So after a few months, they approached me again and asked, could we find someone? Could we reach out and find someone? And that's how we got started.
That's awesome. So just, I have to ask, I think, so number one, awesome story, awesome service. I think, again, as we just said, there's just, even the best companies in the world have to leverage external third-party recruiting and talent location services. I mean, I'm talking about Google, Facebook, Apple, right? These companies literally still have third-party solutions that they use for specific surgical searches. They might have gotten fantastic at more of the cut and dry, or the basic ones, or the types of roles that they've hired so many times that they've gotten excellent at it. But the bottom line is there's certain roles in certain companies and certain industries that are really hard to find. Maybe it's like a super small pool of applicants that might even be qualified for the position, or it's one of those roles where those people are already comfortably employed, meaning they're already working at a phenomenal company, or maybe they've already built their own company and they're kind of serving that space. I do want to ask you, what, like, with the first CX pillar of team, what are some of the ways that you guys kind of think about understanding, number one, just like what type of team you're actually helping to recruit for, but then number two, I'd love to just kind of hear you talk for a minute or two about some of the things that you've kind of seen in your own journey that it's really, really important for future business leaders or tomorrow's business leaders to be thinking about when they're building or when they're trying to hire for or recruit for their teams.
Mm-hmm. So one thing before that I wanted to comment on was what you said, that using third-party solutions. I totally agree. And the funny thing is, Chris, who's the CEO and founder of that company, he was one of those business owners who was my friend and who was taking out their notepads. He copied my entire recruitment process. He made it much better. Like one time he hired 90 writers in 3 months, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, I'm impressed. And they used my exact funnel, which was hilarious. But
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But to answer your question, I mean, it's funny, and like, kind of, if you've been on LinkedIn for 5 minutes, probably you're bombarded with people saying, don't hire for the skills, hire for the fit and personality. If someone has the right personality, they can figure it out, which is true to an extent. I don't always believe that. I mean, someone could have all the personality in the world, but if they just don't have those skills, you don't have the time to wait for 2-3 years for them to figure it out, it's not going to work. So you need someone who has the attitude. You can't work with people with bad attitude, but they need to have those skills, and they need to have them today if you're serious about your business. So that is actually the first thing I look for, and it's kind of maybe controversial. I don't know, but it seems to go against the common wisdom. And whenever I hire someone, and the most important step of the process, that's one I would never skip, is seeing an actual output of something they would do for you, some sort of task, some sort of deliverable. Because if you don't see it, like, you can have all the interviews in the world, but if you don't get to actual work and have something tangible to talk about, you just don't really have a clue of what you're going to get on day one, which is way too late to be reconsidering your hiring decisions.
That's an absolutely fantastic point. I think you're right, where number one, I think this is why you see so many companies out there asking for, whether it's almost like a working test or a working collaborative exercise. Obviously presentations are like one of the tried and true, where like, okay, congratulations, you've gotten through the first 4 interviews, people love you, they think you're great, let's have you present to the leadership team, or let's have you present to your specific team department heads, whatever it might look like. But you're right, there's something about being able to see how a guy or a gal builds their ideas, presents those ideas, socializes those ideas with either customers or with internal teammates. And then more importantly, the deliverable part. I love that you bring this up, and not just because, I mean, here at CXC, we're constantly thinking about how we can optimize the way that we're improving the way that we give our clients their deliverables. So I'm always thinking about deliverables, but you're right. You immediately get a sense, and you see the style and the addition or the complementary additions that individual is going to bring to your business, or that individual is going to bring to your team. And it's if for any of our listeners who aren't doing this right now, especially in startups, guys, I know in the startup world, it can be hard. Sometimes you're trying to fill seats, right? Maybe you just raised some capital. Maybe now there's like this whole new pressure just to hire people. We gave you the money, now go hire people. If you're not already doing this type of stuff, and if you're not thinking about how you can do working exercises or asking applicants for appropriate deliverables, you need to start that immediately. It's a super easy way to do it. And I think you just nailed it, where across the world, I think that's becoming more and more and more the norm, right? It's pretty common for people to say,
it should be.
What's some of your work look like before we start actually talking about the bread and butter part of the deal. So super good advice here.
Yeah. One thing that people like are kind of uneasy about, if it's unpaid, and I just prefer to pay for it. It's the most inefficient way in the world to farm someone else's opinions and someone else's ideas. It makes no sense to say that, oh, this is free and you're only doing this to get our ideas. That's complete nonsense. But just so we don't have that conversation at all, we pay for it. And also, of course, more to show the respect for their time. And then, of course, it's kind of necessary evil on both ends. It's work that sometimes is useful, but more often than not, it's not that useful. But we agree on a small fee, just so both sides are kind of comfortable that, okay, we're not taking advantage.
I love that. I've even heard there's even examples, like there's the Zappos example, and there's many other, big Silicon Valley companies that they would literally pay people to quit in the first 30 days, right? Like if they think that they just made a kick-ass, phenomenal A-player hire, and then a couple weeks into the job, it's just not matching, it's just not melding for whatever reason, the body's rejecting the organ or vice versa. Some companies will literally just pay those people to just call it what it is, walk away, shake hands, and move on. So it's another thing for some of our listeners to be thinking about, which is like, there are a number of different ways that you can think about this in today's world. Ugis, I want you to keep moving forward with some of the things you're doing, but I do want to ask, with the second CX pillar of tools, what types of tools have you guys had to use at RecruiterMill in terms of technology to, number one, help other companies find great A players? You mentioned LinkedIn, but what are some of the tools of the technology sets that you and the team at RecruiterMill have had to start thinking about building and expanding as you've grown the business?
I'm pretty boring when it comes to tools, but LinkedIn actually, it's just a beautiful resource and database of almost every single professional in the world. And if you know how to use it, it's not that hard. You can really find them if you know how to do basic outreach. And if you genuinely have a great offer for someone and it really fits what they're interested in, or at least are likely to be interested in, it's super easy to start conversations. So that's by far kind of my biggest discovery of the past few years, how powerful LinkedIn can be as a database of every professional in the world. It's incredible. Outside of that, again, nothing special, but Slack, it just makes things move so much faster. Because, something that would take, for each reply would take a day on email, maybe. If you can get through the same thing in 5 minutes, I can be already looking for the next candidate based on that feedback. And it's just so helpful that, that's how we can get those even super senior people in 8 weeks or less, because the interaction is so quick and we can adjust so fast that, what used to take, many weeks now takes minutes. And those two, I mean, I know it's boring. They're not the sexiest tools, but they're the ones that make the biggest impact for me.
I mean, I know with LinkedIn, completely echo everything you said about it. We've absolutely built CX Chronicles off the back of LinkedIn, no doubt about it. It's one of the ways that we've been able to reach out, connect, become friends with so many CX and CSers who it's LinkedIn. It was by targeting a group, right? Targeting a base, finding a bunch of professionals that are in a specific set of keywords. To your point, getting better over time at outreach and thinking about what are the ways that you can get people interested, excited, or open to saying yes or saying hello or jumping on a phone call or Zoom chat or whatever it might be. And then over time, you really do start to then also, LinkedIn is one of the best ways that you can improve the way that you think about what your business's ICP or ideal customer profile looks like, because there's something about looking through 1,000 LinkedIn profiles that you start to just kind of pinpoint on what those handful of variables are that equal a higher probability of potential success.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing between recruitment and any activity in business or sales or marketing. You have all the same basic steps in recruitment as you would in sales. So first you need leads, and you need leads for recruitment. You need to nurture those leads, kind of provide them some sort of value. You need to do the same in recruitment. You need to close them. Same in recruitment. You even want to do post-sale activities and kind of onboard them. Same in recruitment. It's the same exact process. And for some reason, most business owners, I think, haven't figured it out yet. But it is, once you apply that same logic, it kind of shifts your entire perspective on recruitment.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I take it one step further. I think in the post-pandemic world, companies that don't think about their employee experience and they don't spend money, time, energy, effort improving, optimizing, and constantly pushing their employee experience forward, I think that those companies will likely be left behind unless they've got a killer product or a killer service, or they've got a monopoly or something like that. Different ballgame. But I think those companies are going to struggle. There's one other piece I want to add to that. What you just said: leads, qualifications, messaging, communications, following up, grooming that pipe. Right. That to me is, for our listeners, think about it just like a customer journey map. What Ugis just explained to us is that's the beginning of your employee journey map, right? And for really great, phenomenal future companies or modern companies, you've got to be taking time to be thinking about your employee journey. You got to, and that's not only HR and recruiting and your talent acquisition, but that goes all the way down the line, right? That's through every manager, every director, every VP in the business has to own his or her own little niche of that employee journey map. It's a team sport for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so what's going to happen if you don't do that? I will reach out to those employees and they're going to have a bad day, and they're going to look at my awesome job ad and they're going to say, yeah, actually I could think about it. And that's how how you close a sale. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, oh, I should buy an iPhone photography course, but somehow through one step after the next, we could close them. And the same thing happens with recruitment. So you have to take care of your employees, or they have so many opportunities to do other things. So it's easy for them to leave.
Love it. Ugis, I'd love to just take a minute or two to talk about the process or the third CX pillar of process. So number one, you mentioned part of when you were starting RecruiterMill was really kind of coming up with a process that worked really well. It was a repeatable process. It worked for many companies, many different business owners, many different business leaders. I'd love to just kind of hear you take a couple of minutes to talk about sort of how did you develop that process, or what were some of the key parts of developing that process that ended up number one, just catching fire, and it actually worked. It started to work. You're able to do it in multiple places. Spend some time talking about process.
So what happened was how kind of what turned my recruitment around was that we had this job that we thought is really good, but no one was applying to it. And we just created a job ad that actually follows marketing principles, actually puts the candidate in the center. And that was kind of the first thing that made me realize, hey, actually this process that everyone does there could be improvements made to it. And today, I don't know where, but I saw Kaizen mentioned somewhere.
Okay.
And it's this gradual and methodical improvement of your processes.
Yeah.
And it struck a chord, because that's what I do every single day. Every single day I rearrange my interview questions, because I think, oh, this will actually make more sense, and maybe take some out or add a new step to the process. You need to be improving all the time if you want to get better at it. And then if you do that for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years in a row, you're bound to get good. So yeah. I guess that's my answer.
I love it. And you're right. It goes back to what we were kind of saying at the beginning of the show, which is like, part of getting excellent at something, it's repetition, it's at bats, it's doing it again and again and again. And to your point, you're just like, each one of those at bats or each one of those repetitions, if you are tinkering and iterating and you're moving the little thing here and moving the little thing over there, over time, you just nailed it, brother. You are going to have a phenomenal process, or you're going to have a phenomenal way of looking at it, or you're going to start to be able to sort of X out the things that don't work, or kind of bump up the things that seemingly work all of the time. And so like and then I love your comment at the end there, but like, you're right. And then when people say that it's overnight success and it's taking 7 years to build the damn process that gets you there, you can kind of gently poke back and say, yeah, I don't know about that. It took thousands of at bats and thousands of hours to find that 7-year overnight success. But I love it. I think that's super cool. What about as you've been growing RecruiterMill, what have you been learning about some of your clients' processes? Has there been anything that's kind of jumped out at you, or has there been anything that you sort of been taken back by the way that other companies are building their processes, or thinking about how to document their processes or build their playbooks?
For processes, I think there's one thing that's in the official process document, and the other thing that's happening in reality. And those things that everyone can make a nice document, but this. When it comes to reality, I think the biggest mistake is not having urgency when it comes to awesome candidates that have come in. If you wait for even a couple of days, this kind of it's pretty much an emotional decision to decide to respond to my message, to come to an interview, to actually consider the offer. And then in 2 days, they could easily cool down and start thinking, maybe I shouldn't do this, and so forth. So you need to build on this frenzy and get them as far as you can down the process. And if you don't do that, that's just a huge mistake, because you miss out on people that, this sliding door moment where they could have, joined your company, but for some reason they didn't, something came up or whatever that may be, and it just doesn't happen. So don't get in your own way by slowing the process down. You have to be really nimble, really quick. And sometimes, most of my clients get it, some of them don't. And it's a little frustrating to work with them, to be honest.
Look, I absolutely love this point. I think it's just like that of a sale, right? The best sales teams, they jump on a lead or they jump on an opportunity like a cougar, right? It is just immediate. Hiring's the exact same thing. Team building is the exact same thing. Adding phenomenal talent is the exact same thing. And then let's take it one step further, man. Today we're talking about A players, right? A big part of what you're doing with RecruiterMill, you're helping these businesses hire A players. A players are on a different level, folks. So listeners, like, if you really are trying to get A players onto your team, they notice everything. They notice every touch point. They notice exactly how long it takes you to either answer them, respond to them, or not respond to them. They notice who's responding. Is it HR? Is it the actual hiring manager? They notice all of these things. And I got to be honest, there's a number of unicorns in our country right now, here in the States, that are horrible at this. So they might have been good enough at going out and raising hundreds of millions of dollars to build a business that's maybe worth $1 billion, maybe not. And those same companies are oftentimes horrific at managing an employee experience or an employee journey. And so you'll have A players applying to these companies, and it might take 2 weeks to get an automated response back, let alone like a personalized response from Ugis or Adrian saying, hey, we're thrilled that you're interested in working here. That's number one. Number two, I love what you just said, where A players are A players because they're studious and they're intelligent, and they're constantly looking for answers, and they're constantly looking for more information and more signals. So if your company has really excellent content and you've got all this great stuff out there on the web about how you are such a great business, great team, all right, maybe you're in a good spot. If you're one of those companies that doesn't have a lot of content, you don't have a strong web presence, and you don't have a ton of YouTube videos or podcasts or written contents and white papers out there, A players are, to your point, they're just literally going to see the next 3 opportunities that do have all that stuff, and they're going to forget about your company forever. So this is super good advice for some of our listeners here when you're thinking about building out your CX and your CS team, especially when you're really trying to find some incredible leaders that are going to be the guys and gals that come in and really kind of build the future of the team and the business.
For sure, yeah. And what you kind of learn over time, and honestly, I didn't get it for the longest time, was that it's not about what you do and what your business does. It's about who does it. It just makes such a bigger difference. So everything you just said, that you need to treat those people that are potentially building your business like gold, and there's just no other way. And if you don't do it, you're very unlikely to be successful. I just don't know how else to put it.
Totally agree. 100% agree. Ugis, I'd love to dive into the fourth and final pillar of feedback. I'd love to just kind of hear. So number one, recruiting, just like sales, man, constant feedback. You're always getting the good, the bad, and the ugly from applicants. You're always getting the good and the bad and the ugly from your clients at RecruiterMill saying, Ugis, these searches were great, these searches not so much. I'd love to kind of hear some of the things that you've kind of broken down and really kind of learned and really kind of tried to harness in on the focusing in with feedback as you've scaled your business.
Yeah, and the easiest thing is probably the first response from a candidate when they've just seen your offer, because my process is reaching out to 50 people that I think are perfect fits for the role and seeing what comes back. And that has proven to be kind of the balance, where out of those 50, there will be kind of, maybe 2 or 3 that actually are in the right moment of the situation, actually are right fits that you read that situation right, and everything kind of works out. And then you can present them to the client, or, when I'm hiring for myself, I can kind of see those candidates. Okay, this is what I'm working with here. And then the next week, when you're reaching out to the next 50, whether I should look for more of the same or I should adjust it slightly differently. So that's feedback, a different form of feedback. But when I'm reaching out to those 50 people, I see what comes back. And if there's more than 2 people even 2 people that have the same question, what to adjust in your job description and your offer, and how you're presenting things and so forth. So I think in terms of feedback, as soon as you hear more than one of the same, that's a good sign that there'd probably be 10 more people who didn't say anything, but they're kind of thinking the same thing. So I think that's a great lesson there.
I got to ask, what about applicants? So I would imagine that as companies are thinking about building incredible hiring experiences or employee experiences, the front of that journey, what have you been seeing, or what have you been hearing as you've been building a RecruiterMill around the ways that companies can get really exceptional at collecting applicant feedback? What did we do great? What did you like about our hiring process? What didn't you like about our hiring process? Has there been any learnings or findings that you really kind of been blown away by as you've been building RecruiterMill?
So that's an interesting one, and it's not probably exactly what you're asking, but a really interesting thing that happened back in the day when I was mostly using job ads. People were applying, and I could see their applications. And I went back into our kind of application system, and I checked every single person we ended up hiring. And back then, our kind of success rate was pretty atrocious, but at the same time, pretty average for most businesses, because they're not that great. And I looked at people's applications, and it was phenomenal. Like, every person who had an awesome application, they were still working there, doing an awesome job. They were great. Everyone who didn't work out, for the most part, there was something signaling in their application. You're about to make a huge mistake if you move forward with this person. And it was just so surprising to me that, yeah, you could tell so much just from one interaction. So if you're getting these kind of red flags or even yellow flags and weird vibes from a person, most likely they're gonna come to fruition sooner or later. And if it's later, it's much worse, because you've invested months or maybe even years by then.
It's funny. It's just amazing, the commonalities and the parallels between any selling or sales funnel or sales pipeline and any talent or employee based pipeline. Because when you said the signals, like the yellows or the red flags, I immediately where my brain went was like, it's almost like it's almost like getting a sales team excellent at disqualifying, right? At disqualifying individuals that are not fully qualified. They're going to likely either have a bad experience, or they're probably going to churn, or they're maybe going to false start where you think it's a sale or you think it's a deal, but then something unravels. It's the same thing on the people side, man. It's the same thing on the employee side, and it's the same thing on the recruiting side. So it's really, really interesting to kind of think about those two worlds, lined up right next to each other.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, you can't go by every single thing that kind of upsets you or something. But what I learned is that if you have that, and anyway, you need people or people that you're going to engage with, whatever it is, recruitment or any other situation, you want them to kind of prove themselves before you make a serious investment. And that's probably the big thing I've learned. And especially if they have these yellow, orange, red, whatever flags, that you kind of put them through some tests first, see if they're really about what you think they're about, because it's the easiest thing in the world to misread someone and project onto them what you want of them. So yeah, you should be kind of careful and try and see them in many different situations and learn about them that way.
Completely agree, man. Completely agree. Ugis, it's been absolutely fantastic, incredible insights, incredible experiences from your personal customer-focused business leader journey. Before we wrap up today's show, anything else that you want the CX Nation to know about the things that you and the team at RecruiterMill are working on? And then number two, where can people find out more about you, sir? And where can people find out more about RecruiterMill?
Yeah, so I don't know if we finished my promise, what I told people, that we're going to tell them how to hire an A player in 8 weeks or less, but
let's do it.
I'll do you one better. I'll actually do them one better. If they go to recruitermill.com and they can schedule a session with me, or they can send me a message. I will take their actual situation that they're in, give them my best kind of shot and knowledge of everything I have, and I tell them straight up what I do. If they want to work with me after, that's perfect. If no hard feelings. But I think it's easy to talk about theory for hours on end. It's better to look at the specific situation and talk about practicalities of that.
Completely agree. And then again, where can people find more about RecruiterMill, Ugis?
The best place is recruitermill.com.
Love it. I think that you are going to be a very busy man the next couple of years, man, because we're going to have, again, there's just going to be, I talk about it regularly on this show and just with our clients at CXC, but we are in the beginning of a massive talent migration wave that I don't think the world actually understands what's about to come right now. I think a lot of people think there's many people that are still in the mindset of, we just got through these last 2 years of the pandemic. You should be lucky and happy that you have a job. Not for A players, man. A players their entire world has been changed. They know what they want. They know what they're worth. They know what they're about to go get. And yeah. I think that there's going to be people like Ugis and RecruiterMill that are going to be super, super busy helping them find their future employers and helping them grow their future businesses, frankly. So absolutely love it. Ugis, has been a pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to keeping our conversation moving into the future. I've already got a bunch of ideas that I'm going to need you to help us with over here at CXChronicles, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.